All right, so we're going to keep on moving. It's time now to start talking about proofreading and polishing your work. So if you're ready, let's jump right into the top 10 methods of doing just that, proofreading and polishing your work. Number one, print it out. Now, the first method is to print out your memoir, and I'll be honest, I am not a fan of killing trees by printing unnecessarily, but I will tell you that many people find it helpful to go ahead and print out their work so they can actually see it on paper, put a pencil on it and put question marks, whatever it is that they want to do. A lot of people still have a they're better able to visualize and understand and communicate with themselves when they have a physical paper that they can mark up. So if you're one of those people, absolutely you should go ahead and print it out. Of course, just environmentally friendly. Don't print a new manuscript every day, every week, whatever. Use pencil and erase if you can. Just do what you need to do to get it done and get it done well. Try to save a tree if you can, but it does help. It does. So make sure that you at least consider going ahead and printing it out the one time. Number two, read it aloud. And we've talked about this. It's so important for you to hear as you see. And so when you read something aloud, it can help you catch the errors, and it also makes sure that your flow and your voice and all of these other aspects are also cared for. Number three, use a spell checker or a proofreader. Now, by this, I'm talking about like Microsoft Word will have the assistant, I think it's called. And then there's another thing that I use a lot is called Grammarly. I use the pro version. These are so helpful. I believe even Google Drive will probably have the editor or the assistant as well. So almost any word processing software should have it. Some are better than others. And I'll be honest with you, I like to use Microsoft Word because I have it read it aloud to me as I follow along, which is an amazing way of catching things that your eyes and your mind won't necessarily pick up. But I also use Grammarly Pro. So I use both. And I honestly recommend using a couple different tools because sometimes they'll not pick up everything, or they may even be in conflict with each other. So if one is saying there should be a comma there and one is saying there shouldn't be, then you can go to the internet and search like, Purdue OWL or some other, just the internet as a whole, and find out, should there be a comma here or not? And it's so much worth the effort that it takes. I really recommend. They will save you a lot of time over doing it without. Number four, check for grammar errors. Now, again, this is kind of duplicated in number three because those tools will help you do this as well. If you have it set to that in your settings. Now, grammar errors are not necessarily going to be wrong in a spell checker though. So you have to make sure is if your settings are set to the red lines and the blue lines and the green lines, all of the little squiggly lines when it tells you something's wrong. Some of them are for grammar, some of them are for spelling, some of them are for word use. So make sure that you learn and understand what your tools are telling you, and that way you're better able to check for things like the spelling and the grammar. It's very important. You can find them on the internet as well. A lot of options are free out there nowadays, so don't hesitate. Make sure you're going through that extra effort. Number five, use a beta reader. Beta readers have been known to save books because sometimes a writer, because they're so in their own story, they believe they've told the perfect story, but then a beta reader has gone through and said, well, wait a minute, I'm confused about this. Were you 16 here, or was this later? Because you're talking about it back here where you're 30 something, but I think that you're talking about when you were 16. And that one error, when the writer had not been clear enough, it was very important, and they were able to revise that paragraph, and it just saved the whole story. Because once a reader gets confused, they almost always will give up on you. Now, some are just so stubborn that they're gonna get through it, and then they're gonna get mad though that you confused them. So do your best, use a beta reader when you can. Number 6, take a break. And I think I said this before. After you've done your manuscript, your brain is just like numb. So it's really important that, whether it's a few hours, but probably a few days, just go away from it. Take a break, do other things, let your mind relax, go on other areas, and then come back refreshed, and then you'll be able to see things more clearly where there are errors. Number 7, read in reverse. Now, reading in a memoir backwards from the ending to the beginning is a way that you can actually catch the grammatical errors, the typos and things like that. When you read it forward, you know the story and you're following it, and you accidentally, you don't realize you're doing it, but you're skimming. So when you read sentence by sentence from the back to the front, you're gonna read something that doesn't make sense to the story. And in that aspect, all you see is the structure of that sentence. So you're able to say, oh yeah, that's not, that should have an apostrophe there, something like that. And it's a great tool to use. Number 8, refer to your outline. Now, assuming you created an outline and you're not a pantser, before you began the journey with your memoir, you should be making regular revisits to your outline as you're drafting to make sure that you're staying on track. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go deeper or you can't change your direction. But if you change your direction, you just want to make sure that it still makes sense, that it's still the same journey, it's still the same project, the same story you want to tell. If you change it, just go back to your outline and make the very, one sentence change there as well, so that it stays in sync with your manuscript. And then you're able to go to your outline and follow it, and just make sure, because it's very easy to emotionally get over here and go down that rabbit hole and then do this, and you end up with a story about learning the game of golf and no one cares. You were going for, this was my coming of age story, and then it ends into a golf book. It doesn't. You really need to be careful. It is very easy to twisty turn around. So just keep your references and make sure that you're going back to your outline. And when you're done, you want to make sure that your whole story was logical, engaging, and emotionally charged. All right, so now number 9, we're going to talk about consistency. Now, you're going to check for consistencies, again, like the names, the settings, timelines, things like that. Those will trip you up, because even if you remember everything so precisely, there's the slightest details that a reader will catch that you may not. So just be very careful and reread. And then number 10, hire a professional editor. Now, you don't have to, if you used all the tools, if you have, you know, a good experience with self-editing and, you know, maybe your papers were always getting A's in school or whatever, you may not need to hire a professional editor, but don't hesitate to do it just in case if you want to, if you don't feel entirely confident, because I will tell you, the readers can tell if something is poorly edited. And even if your story is amazing, if it's poorly edited, unfortunately they'll think less of it, and I don't want that for you. I want this to be your great story and the legacy that you leave. So just remember, proofreading and polishing is very important, and it is, you know, it's not the absolute final step, but it's getting close to the last step of your journey. So there's no need to start cutting corners now. All right. So if you're ready, it's time to move on to the next section.